Mental health is something that I'm very, very passionate about. Mental health has been part of my life always, but I didn't understand it. Growing up, seeing people around me who had been affected by mental illness, people laughing at people, or like Raya said, teasing people, calling people names. It felt wrong, and I didn't join in, but I didn't understand it, if that makes sense. So if there was a family occasion like a wedding, and somebody who perhaps wasn't the same as everybody else, behaved differently, or was quiet, or the words crazy and weirdo would come out, or I remember as a teenager, there was a man, sadly he's passed away now, and he came to stay for a holiday, not at my home but my auntie's home, and I kept watching the way everybody was treating him and making fun and enjoying. Actually, I knew, at that age, 13, 14, this was very, very wrong, but I didn't understand it. And you talked about faith healers, and while he was here, they wanted to get treatment for him because they thought he was possessed, and so they tied him up. I didn't see it, but I heard them talking about it, and he was very disturbed and very upset by the whole, and it made me question things, made me really think about things. He locked himself in the bathroom and he wouldn't come out. I remember that on one occasion when I was there. But it really made me think, and it influenced how I then decided to live my life. I've been involved in disability for most of my adult life, working in it, whether it's learning disabilities or autism. I started a charity in 2003 for adults with learning disabilities and carers, which is still going. I'm no longer involved in it. I left about 6 years ago because it became all-consuming. If anybody can understand something that starts from your home, it's like your little baby. And when you put your heart and soul into something and it's making a difference to people's lives, it completely took over mine, to the point that I burnt out. I forgot about my own health and my own mental health. That, and also foster caring. I decided to foster care young girls because I was 16 when I actually left home. I was disowned by my own family, and I knew what it was like to be out there young and on your own. And a lot of foster carers, I'm not generalising, but young children and babies are very popular. Nobody wants the troubled kids, especially not the teenagers. So I decided to foster care the older girls. The challenge was that I ended up with a very complex case that impacted on my own mental health, and social services were not prepared, we were not prepared, and although we went through it, it got to the stage where she actually tried to commit suicide. Luckily, we found her in time, and it turned out she was very severely mentally ill, and although the services had not picked it up, because of my knowledge, I was able to unravel and find out she had a personality disorder, she had post-traumatic stress disorder. I'm sorry I'm throwing these words around, but perhaps we could explain a little bit later. It impacted not only on me, on my family as well, and that and my physical health started to deteriorate, and some other life events happened, and I ended up going into depression myself. At the same time, I still managed to function and continue working. I have a very supportive family and a wonderful husband. I was a victim of a hate crime, and that basically did it. That was the crunch then. Because the first time it happened to me, I managed to get over it. I had some counselling, I was okay. The second time it happened, 2 cyclists were coming on a bike in broad daylight. I was going to the park with my foster child, and I had no inclination this man was going to go for me. And I thought I was fine. I carried on as normal, and then realised when the days following I couldn't leave the house on my own. And every time I was going to meetings, I was becoming paranoid, I was becoming breathless, I was having panic attacks. I couldn't go anywhere on my own. And I think for about 5 months this continued, to the point I said, I can't, I just can't do this anymore. Anyway, after a year's worth of counselling and really, really searching inside of myself and kind of saying, no, I'm not going to let this beat me, we've got there. I'm not going to say to you, I'm recovered. There's no such thing. But it's been an amazing journey. And out of the journey, I decided to start something which I had actually initially wanted to do more than a decade ago, which is Jamila's Legacy. Now, the difference between Jamila's Legacy and the charity that I set up, the learning disability charity, which was all-consuming, I made sure I put myself as priority this time, and I was not going to get consumed. So what could I do to make a difference in terms of mental health awareness without sacrificing myself completely to the point where I would become ill again? So using that, I'm using my skills and knowledge by giving myself to the community, but only limiting it by not taking any funding of any sort, not attaching myself to any building or any title, and inviting just anybody to come along to listen and learn and talk and share about mental health. So we started that in November 2015. Time and time again, a lot of my clients are Muslim, and that family is not understanding, husband's not understanding, or wife's not understanding. Oh, there's no such thing as depression in Islam. What? Oh, there's, your faith is weak if you are mentally ill. You've done something wrong. It's a punishment from God. So when you hear all these things, it's frustrating. It comes from lack of understanding. Yeah, and I feel that the more we talk about mental health, the more it will become acceptable, the less stigma, and the more people will be able to open up and talk about it. Jamila's Legacy is in memory of all the people who have crossed my path, touched my life in some way, who have been affected by mental health. Some of them are no longer around, some of them have committed suicide, some of them are my family members, some of them my friends, and some of them were strangers. But Jamila's Legacy represents all of them. It's in memory of all of them and all of the people that are still being affected by mental health. And that's what it's about. And all I do is I put it out there on social media. Once a month, I hold a free event. I ask, make friends with the local coffee shop owner and ask if they would be willing to let me use their coffee shop for free, or somebody will very kindly pay for a venue. Somebody will bring the biscuits, somebody will bring the tea, and I'll do the printing, I'll bring the equipment, and we do it, And it works. The last 2 sessions we had was on men's mental health, and we wanted it to be specifically men's mental health because there's such a taboo around men's mental health. It's okay for men to be angry, but not to cry. And then we wonder why the suicide rates are much higher for men, So it started with only having 1 session. The demand was huge. I was really taken aback because so many people that attended really opened up, and so many, and I don't mean to stereotype, the stereotypical you'd think would come to those kind of events were not there. I had a scholar come from Gloucester. He was an imam of a local mosque, and he was struggling with his mental health, and he said to me that I have got all this responsibility of my community, but I've got no support for myself. And what was wonderful for me was I gave him some contacts, and he managed to get himself a counsellor, and he's getting the help he needs. So I was really, really pleased. I had a gentleman come from London that I hadn't met, but he'd rang me up and he said, I've heard about your event from my girlfriend, and I'd like to come along. Can I come along? And then he opened up and he said, 2 years ago, I've lost my father, and I think I'm depressed. And he's getting help. So it's great, that's what Jamila's Legacy is about. It's just about bringing people together and to increase awareness and understanding of mental health. And the long-term vision is that talking about mental health becomes a norm. The more we talk about it, So although, you were right not to talk about statistics, this one I do want to talk about. 1 in 4 of us are affected by a mental health problem in any year in the UK. That's records, of 1 in 4 who have accessed a service, contacted a GP? What about all of the people that never accessed a service? Until recently, I hadn't, and there have been periods in my life before as well where I've had depression or I've had issues with my mental health, but nobody knows about it. So I'm convinced it's more than 1 in 4. Yeah? Okay. How many of you in this room know somebody who is affected by mental health? There we go. Yeah, that says it all when we're talking about 1 in 4. How many of you have somebody at work that has mental illness? How many of you, those of you that are in a learning environment, have a peer that is affected by mental illness? Yeah. How many of you who have a loved one, a family member who has a mental illness? Okay, you see what I mean? We're all touched by it. How many of you have a loved one who is affected by mental illness, as in somebody close, very close to you? Okay, see what I'm saying? Yeah. So this is important stuff. And yet, we focus so much on our physical health and everything else, but we don't seem to focus on our mental health. And we're brought up that way as well, which is why I mentioned my burnout earlier, because I understood the giving and what my faith teaches me and caring about the world, but I forgot to care about myself. And that's not really what my faith teaches me. It's what I misunderstood or what was taught to me by others. So how do you all take care of yourselves? I'm just going to put it out there. What do you do to take care of your mental health? Anybody? Any volunteers?
Exercise.
Yes. Exercise is a really good one as well. Yeah.
Meditation.
Brilliant.
Writing.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So sometimes that release, emotional release as well. So when I was going through the stages where I was very, very anxious and my mind was erratic, I took to writing. I look back on it and I read the stuff I wrote that. But it was the only way, it was a form of, so I could breathe. It felt lighter. It wasn't really meant for, publishing out there. It was just how, because it's so hard to explain sometimes when it's all going on in there to somebody else. You can't communicate it, So yeah, I know what you're saying. Anything else that you might do to take care of your mental health? Have a bath, yes. Although I can't do that because I feel very claustrophobic, but that works for other people. That's great. But I'm showing you the difference. What works for one person may not necessarily work for others. So when we get into this rigid where we say, look, I guarantee you this works. Try it. You've got to do it. Yes, okay. They can try it if they want to, but it might not be that it works for them either because we're all individuals. So what are you doing? So if you are doing things, that's great. But if you're thinking perhaps maybe I don't do much at all, then maybe think about making your mental health a priority and doing more things for yourselves. I recently put up a post on Jamila's Legacy Instagram account. I'm learning to play the piano at the moment. So just maybe learning a new skill and just focusing on the notes and the music. The anxiety that I had before and my mind was everywhere because I could not focus or relax. It's helping me do it. I'm actually doing. That's the reason I paint as well. So do whatever works for you to take care of your mental health and try new things, try new experiences. You'll be surprised. It's important. Okay. Now talking about other people that are affected by mental illness, and we've all said we know. How can we support other people? What can you do? I want you to think about that. Basic things, because sometimes you think, oh God, I'm not sure even if I can even ask, how are you, So I think sometimes there's no wrong or right, yeah? And you might get it wrong, that's okay. One of the things that, and my husband will tell you, one of the things that he would say to me is calm down, and that was not the right thing to say to me. That would just, that to me is a trigger word, calm down. What do you mean calm down? I'm in pain and I need to shout it out. I need to just get it out, and you're saying calm down. That to me just really, really did, yeah. But it is trial and error. But the fact that you show compassion, understanding, maybe just listen or smile, yeah? Don't ignore that person. Are you okay today? No, actually, I'm not. I'm having a real tough day today. Okay, is there anything I can do to help? No. And sometimes, when people say, leave me alone, do they mean leave you? If you know that person, check in on them. Yeah? But don't force somebody to go and see a doctor. Don't force somebody to take medication. It is their choice. Yeah? You can't get better, this is talking from experience, unless you want to get better. It has to be from you. It can't be what others are doing to you. Okay. All right. Famous people. Who do you think on that slide has a mental illness or has had? Well done. There you go. See? So what does it say there? That you can be successful and can still have a mental illness. But more importantly, that mental illness can affect anybody. It has no age limits, no economic status, race, creed, colour, anything. It can affect anybody. Small children, adults, older people, anybody. Okay, brilliant. Coming to the end as well, so that's worked out really, really well. Okay, so finally, I know lots of people some of the speakers mentioned Rumi today as well, and I'm a fan also. And I absolutely love this one, because the one thing that I have learned is that from my pain, I have actually learned so much about myself and who I am. I feel so content. It sounds crazy. And it's as if I found myself, and the answer actually lay within me. It didn't lie within anybody else. And that makes me feel really good. So keep taking care of yourselves, and just keep talking about mental health with other people. Thank you very much for listening.